Have you ever witnessed a moment so shocking it left everyone in the room stunned? This courtroom story will make you question everything. It was an ordinary morning at the courthouse, but as people began filling the courtroom, you could sense that today was going to be different. At the centre of it all sat Judge Carter, a man whose reputation for fairness and sharp wit preceded him. He had been a judge for over 20 years, and he'd seen it all, or so he thought. On one side of the courtroom, a young man named Jamal sat nervously at the defendant's table. He was in his early 20s, dressed in a clean but slightly oversized button-down shirt. His hands fidgeted with his tie as he glanced around the room, clearly out of his element. On the other side sat Officer Blake, a veteran cop with more than 2 decades on the force. He exuded confidence, or perhaps arrogance, as if he already knew the outcome of the case. Jamal had been charged with resisting arrest and assaulting a police officer, serious accusations that carried the potential to ruin his life. But here's the twist. Jamal claimed he was innocent. He insisted that the charges were fabricated by Officer Blake after an encounter that spiraled out of control. And as the details began to emerge, one thing became clear. This case wasn't just about Jamal. It was about something much bigger, a clash of justice and systemic bias. The prosecution wasted no time painting Jamal as a troublemaker. They described him as aggressive, disorderly, and resistant to authority. You could almost see the jury's unease as they listened, some of them glancing at Jamal as if trying to reconcile the description with the quiet, anxious young man sitting before them. It wasn't looking good for him. Then came the defence's turn. Jamal's lawyer, a sharp and composed woman named Ms. Richards, began questioning Officer Blake. She started calmly, almost conversationally. "Officer Blake, can you walk us through the events leading up to Jamal's arrest?" Daniels leaned back slightly, speaking in a polished, rehearsed tone. "The defendant was acting erratically, causing a disturbance. When I attempted to detain him, he resisted and became physically aggressive." His words were smooth, but there was something about his demeanour that felt off. Then Ms. Richards dropped the first bombshell. "Officer Blake, can you explain why your body camera was turned off during this incident?" The room went silent. You could hear the faint rustling of someone shifting in their seat. Daniels's confident facade cracked for just a moment. "The battery died," he said, but his voice lacked the conviction it had moments ago. Ms. Richards's lips curled into a slight smile. "I see. How convenient." She turned to the judge. "Your Honour, I would like to present video evidence captured by a bystander during the incident." Judge Carter nodded, and the video began playing on the screen for everyone to see. The grainy footage showed Jamal standing calmly, asking why he was being detained. Then, without warning, Officer Blake shoved him against a wall. The murmurs in the courtroom grew louder as the video continued, showing Jamal's repeated attempts to de-escalate the situation. Judge Carter raised his hand. "Order in the court," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. He turned to Officer Blake, his expression unreadable. "Officer, would you care to explain this video?" Daniels shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "The video doesn't show the full context," he mumbled. "There were other factors." Ms. Richards wasn't done. "Your Honour, I also have evidence of Officer Blake's previous misconduct complaints, including 2 similar incidents where body cameras were mysteriously turned off." The tension in the room reached its peak. Judge Carter's eyes narrowed as he leaned forward. "Officer Blake," he said, his tone sharp, "I've been on this bench for over 20 years, and I have seen many officers who honour their duty. But your actions, as presented here today, bring shame to your badge." The officer tried to interrupt, but the judge held up a hand. "Do not interrupt me," he said firmly. This court will not tolerate the abuse of power, especially from those sworn to uphold the law. Your behaviour not only endangered an innocent man, but also eroded the trust between law enforcement and the community. In a dramatic conclusion, Judge Carter dismissed all charges against Jamal, citing lack of evidence and clear misconduct by Officer Blake. But he didn't stop there. The judge ordered an internal investigation into the officer's conduct, ensuring that accountability wouldn't end in the courtroom. As Jamal walked out of the courthouse, you could see the weight lifting off his shoulders. Reporters swarmed him, microphones and cameras in his face. But all he said was, "I'm just thankful the truth came out." Outside, Jamal's lawyer spoke briefly to the press. "Today was a win for justice," she said, "but it's a reminder that we still have a long way to go." Now let me ask you, what would you do if you were in Jamal's position? Would you have had the courage to stand up for yourself against such overwhelming odds? This story isn't just about one man's fight for justice. It's a reminder to all of us about the importance of accountability and truth. If this story inspired you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Together, we can make a difference.